Hello children, welcome to Nagesh Karasgi Orchid School channel. So we have started history lesson, last lesson, lesson number 10. So we have stopped on page number 144. Now we are going to continue with the lesson. After completing our lesson, just we are going to see the video animation also. So let's continue with this same lesson. Open your textbooks, page number 145. That is, now we have completed Hyderabad and Awadh. Now next state Bengal, we are going to read about it. Bengal gradually broke away from Mughal control under Murshid Quli Khan, who was appointed as the Naib, deputy to the governor of the province. Although never a formal Subedar, Murshid Quli Khan very quickly seized all the power that went with that office. Like the rulers of Hyderabad and Awadh, he also commanded the revenue administration of the state. In an effort to reduce Mughal influence in Bengal, he transferred all Mughal Jagirdars to Orissa and ordered a major reassessment of the revenues of Bengal. Revenue was collected in cash with great strictness from all zamindars. As a result, many zamindars had to borrow money from bankers and moneylenders. Those unable to pay were forced to sell their lands to larger zamindars. Now, Bengal, it broke from Mughal control. Gradually it broke. Means it was not in their control. Under who? Murshid Quli Khan, who he was appointed as a Naib or deputy to the governor of the province. He was never a formal Subedar. Murshid Quli Khan very quickly seized, he hold the control, all the power that went with that office, like rulers of Hyderabad and Awadh, how they have controlled. He commanded the revenue administration of the state, and in an effort to reduce Mughal influence, he don't want the influence of Mughals, so to reduce it in Bengal, he transferred all Mughal Jagirdars to Orissa and ordered a major reassessment. Again the assessment was done on revenues of Bengal. Revenue was collected in cash with great strictness. It was collected with great strictness from zamindars. Many zamindars had to borrow because they could not pay that amount. So, they have to borrow money from bankers and moneylenders, and those who were unable to pay were forced to sell their lands to larger zamindars. The smaller zamindars, they used to sell their land to larger zamindars. The formation of the regional state in 18th century Bengal therefore led to considerable change amongst the zamindars. Because of this, there was a major change in the zamindars. The close connection between the state and bankers, noticeable in Hyderabad and Awadh as well, was evident in Bengal under the rule of Alivardi Khan in 1740 to 1756. During his reign, the banking house of Jagat Seth became extremely prosperous. So, here now during his rule, whose rule? Alivardi Khan, the banking house of Jagat Seth, it became extremely prosperous because there was much lending of money. If we take a bird's eye view, we can detect three common features among these states. First, though many of the larger states were established by what? By astravile means, this is astravile means past, the administrative systems that they had inherited, in particular the Jagirdari system. Second, their method of tax collection differed. Rather than relying upon the officers of the state, all three regimes contracted with revenue farmers for the collection of revenue. The practice of ijradari, thoroughly disapproved of by Mughals, spread all over India in the 18th century. Their impact on the countryside differed considerably. The third common feature in all these three regional states was their emerging relationship with rich bankers and merchants. These people lent money to revenue farmers, received land as security and collected taxes from these lands through their own agents. Throughout India, the richest merchants and bankers were gaining a stake in the new political order. So, here now if we consider all these three states, the common features like, see, Mughal nobles were highly suspicious of some administrative system that they had inherited, in particular ijradari means system, and second, first is this, and second, their method of tax collection differed now. They made variations in collecting tax. Rather than relying upon the officers of the state, all three regimes means ruling system contracted with the revenue farmers for the collection of revenue. Okay. They were not relying upon the officers, they collected revenue from the revenue farmers, they told the revenue farmers to collect revenue. Okay. And this disapproved by the Mughals, which was disapproved by the Mughals, spread all over the India in the 18th century. Then impact on the countryside differed considerably. The third common feature is that emerging relationships with the rich bankers and merchants. Why this? Because these people lent money to the revenue farmers. If they were not having, revenue farmers were unable to pay, they used to borrow the money from merchants and rich bankers, and even these people, they received, merchants, they received land as security and collected taxes on that land by sending their own agents. Okay. So, in this way, this India, the richest merchants and bankers were gaining a stake in the new political order. They were gaining a hold, good hold in political order. The Vatan Jagirs of Rajputs. Many Rajput kings, particularly those belonging to Amber and Jodhpur, had served under the Mughals with distinction. In exchange, they were permitted to enjoy considerable autonomy in their Vatan Jagirs. In the 18th century, these rulers now attempted to extend their control over adjacent regions. Ajit Singh, the ruler of Jodhpur, was also involved in the factional politics at the Mughal control now. See now, Vatan Jagirs of Rajput. Many Rajput kings belonging to those who were, many of the Rajput kings, particularly belonging to Amber and Jodhpur, have served under the Mughals with distinction, means to do great things. They were permitted to enjoy considerable autonomy. Okay. Means self-government. They were given self-government in their Vatan Jagirs. And in 18th century, these rulers now attempted to extend their control over adjacent regions also. They started to rule adjacent regions. And Ajit Singh, the ruler of Jodhpur, was also involved in the factional politics. Means with large identity or entity, factional politics means with large entity at the Mughal court. These influential Rajput families claimed the subedari of the rich provinces of Gujarat and Malwa. Raja Ajit Singh of Jodhpur held the governorship of Gujarat and Savai Raja. See, now this Raja Ajit Singh of Jodhpur held the governorship of Gujarat, and Savai Raja Jai Singh of Amber was governor of Malwa. These offices were renewed by Emperor Jahangir Shah in 1713. They also tried to extend their territories by seizing portions of imperial territories neighboring their watans. Nagaur was conquered and annexed to the house of Jodhpur, while Amber seized large portions of Bundi. Savai Raja Jai Singh founded his new capital at Jaipur and was given the Subedari of Agra in 1722. Maratha campaigns into Rajasthan from the 1740s put severe pressure on these principalities and checked their further expansion. Now here the further who this Savai Raja Jai Singh of Amber, he was governing Malwa, and Ajit Singh of Jodhpur, he held the governorship of Gujarat. Okay, these offices were renewed by Emperor Jahandar Shah in 1713. They also tried to extend their territories, okay, by seizing portions of imperial territories neighboring their watans. Okay. Now here the house of Jodhpur, while Amber seized large portions of Bundi, Savai Raja Jai Singh founded his own new capital at Jaipur and he was given the Subedari of Agra in 1722. Now Maratha campaigns into Rajasthan from 1740s. They put a severe pressure on these principalities and checked their further expansion. Now we are going to the next topic, that is seizing independence. Seizing independence is to capture now independence. It is, now we are going to read it. The Sikhs. The organization of the Sikhs into the political community during the 17th century, we saw in chapter 8, helped in regional state building in Punjab. Several battles were fought by Guru Gobind Singh against the Rajput and Mughal rulers both before and after institution of the Khalsa in 1699. After his death in 1708, the Khalsa rose in revolt against the Mughal authority under Banda Bahadur's leadership, declared their sovereign rule by striking coins in the name of Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh, and established their own administration between the Satluj and Jamuna. Banda Bahadur was captured in 1715 and executed in 1716. Now here the organization of the Sikhs into political community during the 17th century helped in revisional state building in the Punjab. Here see now, Guru Gobind Singh and several battles were fought by whom? Guru Gobind Singh against Rajputs and Mughal rulers, both before after institution of Khalsa. Now Khalsa is the body or company of fully initiated Sikhs. Okay, it is a company of fully initiated Sikhs. Members show loyalty by 5 signs. The Khalsa members, they show loyalty by 5 signs. They are called 5 Ks. This is the information I am giving about Khalsa. Okay, first one is Kanga, that is comb. Second is Khara, steel bangle. Third is Kesh, uncut hair covered with turbans. If you see the Sikh peoples, they cover their head with turban. Fourth is Kirpan, it is a short sword. And fifth is Kacha, that is short trouser. Okay, these all signs, 5 signs shown by Khalsa. Okay. Now here the Khalsa rose in revolt against the Mughal authority under whose leadership? Banda Bahadur's leadership, and they declared their sovereign rule by striking coins. They were pressing image. Striking coins means pressing image in the name of Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh, and established their own administration between Satluj and Jamuna. Banda Bahadur was captured in 1715 and executed in 1716. Now we will go to next page 149. Under a number of able leaders in the 18th century, the Sikhs organized themselves into a number of bands called Jhatas and later on Missals. Their combined forces were known as the Grand Army Dal Khalsa. The entire body used to meet at Amritsar at the time of Baisakhi and Diwali to take collective decisions known as resolutions of the Guru, that is Guru Matas, and a system called Rakhi was introduced offering protection to cultivators on the payment of a tax of 20% of the produce. So now under a number of able leaders in 18th century, the Sikhs organized themselves into number of bands called Jhatas, means armed parade, and later on Missals. Their combined forces were known as Grand Army Dal Khalsa. Okay. The entire body, the entire company used to meet at Amritsar. At what time they used to meet? In the festivals like Baisakhi and Diwali, to take collective decisions, that is called resolutions of the Guru, and they introduced a system called Rakhi, and what it offers? It offers protection to cultivators on the payment of tax of 20% of the produce. So it is a protection for cultivators. Guru Gobind Singh had inspired the Khalsa with the belief that their destiny was to rule. Raj Karega Khalsa. Their well-knit organization enabled them to put up a successful resistance to the Mughal governors first, and then to Ahmad Shah Abdali, who had seized the rich province of the Punjab and the Sarkar of the Sirhind from the Mughals. The Khalsa declared their sovereign rule by striking their own coin again in 1765. Significantly, this coin bore the same inscription as one of the orders issued by the Khalsa in the time of Banda Bahadur. There also we read this again, they were striking the coins. Okay. Now here Guru Gobind Singh had inspired the Khalsa with belief, and their destiny was to rule. What is their destiny? They Raj Karega Khalsa. Their well-knit organization means well organized organization enabled them to put a successful resistance to the Mughal governors. Okay. The Sikh territories in the late 18th century extended from the Indus to the Jamuna, but they were divided under different rulers. One of them, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, reunited these groups and established his capital at Lahore in 1799. Now the Sikh territories in late 18th century extended from the Indus to the Jamuna, but they were divided under different rulers. Now they were divided. One of them was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. He reunited these groups and established his capital at Lahore. The Marathas. Now we will go to the topic, the Marathas. The Maratha kingdom was another powerful regional kingdom to arise out of the sustained opposition to the Mughal rule. Okay, Shivaji carved out a stable kingdom with the support of powerful warrior families, that is Deshmukhs, groups of highly mobile peasant pastoralists, that is Kunbis, provided the backbone of the Maratha army. So the Maratha army was supported by the Deshmukhs and Kunbis. Okay, they were from warrior families Deshmukhs, and peasant pastoralists were Kunbis. They provided the backbone of the Maratha army. Shivaji used these forces to challenge the Mughals in the peninsula After Shivaji's death, effective power in the Maratha state was wielded by a family of Chitpavan Brahmanas who served Shivaji's successors as Peshwa. Pune became the capital of the Maratha kingdom. Now, after Shivaji's death, the effective power in Maratha state was wielded by which family? Chitpavan Brahmanas means Kokanasth Brahmanas or Maharashtrian Brahmanas who served Shivaji's successors as Peshwa. Okay, Pune became the capital of Maratha kingdom. Under the Peshwas, the Marathas developed a very successful military organization. Their success lay by passing the fortified areas of Mughals, by raiding cities and by engaging Mughal armies in areas where their supply lines and reinforcements could be easily disturbed. Now, under Peshwas, under the rule of Peshwas, the Marathas developed a very successful military organization. Their success led by passing the fortified areas of the Mughals, bypassing the fortified areas of the Mughals and by raiding cities and by engaging the Mughal armies in where there is a supply lines and reinforcements where they can be easily disturbed. Between 1720 and 1761, the Maratha Empire expanded. It gradually chipped away at the authority of the Mughal Empire. Malwa and Gujarat were seized from the Mughals by the 1720s. By the 1730s, the Maratha king was recognized as the overlord of the entire Deccan Peninsula. He possessed the right to levy Chauth and Sar Deshmukhi in the entire region. Now, Chauth means 25% of the land revenue claimed by zamindars in the Deccan. This was collected by the Marathas, and Sar Deshmukhi means 9 to 10% of the land revenue laid to the head revenue collector in the Deccan. Here now the Maratha king was recognized as the overlord of the entire Deccan Peninsula, and they had the right to levy Chauth and Sar Deshmukhi. After raiding Delhi in 1737, the frontiers of Maratha domination expanded rapidly into Rajasthan and the Punjab in the north, into Bengal and Orissa in the east, and into Karnataka and Tamil and Telugu countries in the south. These were not formally included in the Maratha Empire, but were made to pay tribute as a way of accepting Maratha sovereignty. Expansion brought enormous resources, but it came at a price. These military campaigns also made their rulers hostile towards the Marathas. As a result, they were not inclined to support the Marathas during the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761. So, here now after raiding Delhi in 1737, the frontiers of Maratha domination expanded into Rajasthan and Punjab in the north, Bengal and Orissa in the east, Karnataka, Tamil and Telugu in the south. These were not formally included in the Maratha Empire, they were not included, but were made to pay tribute as a way of accepting Maratha sovereignty. Okay, they were paying the tribute. Expansion brought enormous resources, but they came for price. Okay. Now, these military campaigns also made the other rulers hostile towards the Marathas, means strong feeling against Marathas. Now, these military campaigns, they were made other rulers to feel against towards the Marathas. As a result, they were not inclined to support, they were not supporting the Marathas during the Third Battle of Panipat. Alongside endless military campaigns, the Marathas developed an effective administrative system as well. Once conquest had been completed and Maratha rule was secure, revenue demands were gradually introduced to taking local conditions into account. Agriculture was encouraged and trade revived. This allowed Maratha chiefs, Sardars like Scindia of Gwalior, Gaikwad of Baroda, Bhosle of Nagpur, the resources of raise powerful armies. Maratha campaigns into Malwa in 1720s did not challenge the growth and prosperity of the cities in the region. Ujjain expanded under Scindia patronage and Indore under Holkars. By all accounts, these cities were large and prosperous and functioned as important commercial and cultural centers. Now here the Marathas developed an effective administrative system as well. Okay. Once they had been completed, the Maratha rule it was secure and revenue demands were gradually introduced in taking local conditions into account. Now agriculture was encouraged and trade revived. These allowed Maratha chiefs like Scindia of Gwalior, Gaikwad of Baroda and Bhosle of Nagpur the resources to raise their powerful armies. So in this way they raised their powerful armies, and Maratha campaigns into Malwa in 1720s did not challenge the growth and prosperities of the cities in this region, So Ujjain expanded under Scindia's patronage. Patronage means under support, and Indore under Holkars. New trade routes emerged within the areas controlled by Marathas. The silk produced in the Chanderi region now found a new outlet in Pune. The Maratha capital Burhanpur, which had earlier participated in the trade between Agra and Surat, now expanded its hinterland to include Pune and Nagpur in the south and Lucknow and Allahabad in the east. The Jats, like the other states, the Jats consolidated their power during the late 17th and 18th centuries. Under their leader Churman, they acquired control over territories situated to the west of the city of Delhi, and by 1680s they had begun dominating the region between the two imperial cities of Delhi and Agra. For a while they became the virtual custodians of the city of Agra. The Jats were prosperous agriculturalists, and towns like Panipat and Balabgarh became important trading centers in areas dominated by them. Under Surajmal, the kingdom of Bharatpur emerged as a strong state. When Nadir Shah sacked Delhi in 1739, many of the city's notables took refuge there. His son Jawahir Shah had 30,000 troops of his own and hired another 20,000 Maratha and 15,000 Sikh troops to fight the Mughals. While the Bharatpur fort was built in a fairly traditional style, at Dig and Jats built an elaborate garden palace combining styles seen at Amber and Agra. Its buildings were modeled on architectural forms first associated with royalty under Shah Jahan, that is, see figure 12 in chapter 5 and figure 12 in chapter 9. So figure in chapter 5, it is figure 12 is a throne balcony in Diwan A Alam in Delhi, and in chapter 9 this figure is 4-roofed temple with a tower. These architectural forms you can see. So children, in this way we have completed lesson number 10th of history, means all the lessons we have completed from this subject. To know this lesson better, we will go for some PPT and video. So let's watch it in the next session. Until then, take care, read the lesson. Okay, bye.